Hello, everyone. You're watching sqadia.com. Today, we are entering into the section 5th of our lecture, that is development of integumentary system. And today, the section would include the sweat glands and mammary glands. In this section, we will be discussing the development of sweat glands, their anatomy, the development of Vernus seizosa, as I've already covered a bit of it in the previous section, nails, how they're developed and what are their abnormalities, mammary glands, their development and their anomalies, especially associated with the mammary glands. So, what are sweat glands? They develop at about the 20th weeks of the solid growth of epidermis cells into the underlying dermis. And in the previous section, as you saw a normal diagram of the uh, skin, you can appreciate there was a coiling of the dermis, lot of it, but there was a duct going into the epidermis. So actually, they are not developed from dermis, but they are developed from, like here, they are also developed from epidermis. But as they develop, they come down to lie eventually in the dermis. Now this is, if you appreciate this, this is the epidermis and this is the mesenchyme which eventually give rise to dermis. Now this is the pit which formation going on, and gradually they will descend down into the dermis. As it descends down and they gradually coil up in the adult, you can appreciate this is the pore and they are coiled up in the epidermis, in the dermis, but they were derived from the dermis, which is important point to learn that here sebaceous glands, sweat glands, they are all derived from the epidermis, but they gradually descend down into the dermis and eventually in adults they lie and appear to lie in the dermis. Its terminal part coils and forms the body of the gland. As you can appreciate in this diagram, the central cells degenerate to form a lumen of the gland. Over here, eventually there's the degeneration of these central cells leading into the formation of the lumen. As you can see, there's a development of lumen is going on. Gradually, these cells will also degenerate, resulting in the pore formation, which actually opens up into the skin. The peripheral cells differentiate into secretory cells and contractile myoepithelial cells. What is Vernus seizosa? Uh, Before going into the Vernus seizosa, I would just like to mention over here is that the sweat glands have a very important function, that they secrete sweat. And what does it does? The secretion of sweat actually evaporates. There is evaporation of sweat leading to cooling down effect of the body, and thus this important function of thermoregulation of the skin has a very important role, especially if this malfunctions or if the skin is unable to regulate the temperature of the body. This can result in heat exhaustion or heat stroke. Coming to the vernix seizosa, as I told you that this is a waxy or a cheesy white substance found coating of the skin of the newborn. The vernix is secreted by the sebaceous gland around the 20th week of gestation. It is composed of sebum, which is a oily substance, desquamated epithelial cells, and fetal hair, which in fetus there are white transparent hair, thin white hairs which are present, which is called lanuga hair, and it protects the baby's skin from dehydration and from constant exposure to amniotic fluid. So actually in fetus is actually lying inside the uterus in amniotic fluid. So this amniotic fluid could be very disastrous if this layer is not present. It actually kinds of protects the fetal skin from corrosive effect of the amniotic fluids. Coming to the nails, they are also part of the integumentary system, and they are derivatives of the skin and associated structures. They begin to develop by about the 10th week of gestation as thickened areas of the epidermis at the tip of the digits. Later, these nail fields extend to the dorsal surface and become surrounded by the nail folds. And cells from the proximal nail fold grow over the nail field and form keratinized nail plate and primordium of the nail. Now, as you can appreciate, this is the distal fillings. As the nail is growing, actually, it's dividing from here, and this is the nail root, and this then gradually goes in and extends over the body, and we only cut this portion. All this is actually present in this is. Now this is now if you see over here in this diagram, there's stratum corneum present right over here, and then this is actually the nail is come applying over it. This is the nail root. This is the cuticle from which it's gonna grow. This is lanula. This is the whitish you usually see and normally present at the nails, and this is the nail body, and this is the free edge. And if you see on from above diagram, this is the nail field or lateral nail fold from which eventually nails are gonna grow. They grow from the proximal side and gradually extend distally. Coming to the mammary glands, they begin to develop during the 6th week as thickened strips of ectoderm or mammary ridges that extend from axillary to the inguinal regions. They regress in most locations except in the area of the pectoral muscles where they proliferate. Now, one has to understand in this diagram, you can appreciate is a mammary ridge. Why it's called as mammary ridge? Because this all cells in this ridge can give rise to mammary glands. But usually they regress later on in the fetal life, except only in the pectoral region in the female fetuses, which can give rise to breast. But if they do not, and at times there is an abnormality that they do not have the results in the regression, this results in accessory nipple formation, which can be present in the axilla, which could be present in the normal breast surface, which could be present in the abdomen, and as low as in the inguinal region as well. Now this is the diagram which is showing the formation of the mammary glands. As you can see, they are also formed with the epidermis. The epidermal cell starts to proliferate. Now this is the mesenchyme which will give rise to dermis later on. And as they proliferate and invaginate into the epidermis, as you can appreciate later on, there will be epithelial pit formation and the lactiferous ducts will be formed on this, and as they divide and divide, they form more and more lactiferous ducts and gradually give rise to a mammary gland or a breast, normal breast tissue. Now in adults, you can appreciate this is the line which is showing the mammary ridge. So if the accessory nipple are present, they could be, this is the normal position, they could be present anywhere along this the ridge. It could be in the axilla, it could be in the upper abdomen, or it could be as low as in the inguinal region. So all mammary accessory nipples could be present all along the mammary depending upon if there is abnormal development of the mammary ridge in area other than the pectoral region. In this, the downgrowth of the epithelial tissue continues to proliferate into 16 to 24 solid out buddings which give rise to the lactiferous cells. As I told you that they divide and then they invaginate into the epidermis, or downgrowth happens. And as they are downgrowing, they're giving rise to the secondary buds, which will further eventually divide and divide to give rise to the lactiferous ducts. The fibrous and connective tissue and the fat of the mammary gland develop from the surrounding mesenchyme. Now, ducts form from the epidermis, the fatty tissue and the fibrous tissue forms from the dermis. Now this is an important point that the ducts from the epidermis while the other structures associated in the breast are formed from the dermis, that are the mesenchymal structures. Coming to the anomalies of the breast. What is gynecomastia? Gynecomastia is the presence of breast in males. It is a multifactorial problem. This could be associated with the hormonal imbalance, there could be associated with diet, or it could be even sometimes only one of the breasts is enlarged in the male, sometimes there is bilateral enlargement of the males as well. But as gynecomastia is a problem and there are the treatments for it as well. But in males who have a gynecomastia, there are very high risk of CA breast in males as well. Coming to the polythalia, which is abnormal or multiple breast formation, a condition in which accessory nipples have formed resulting from the persistence of fragments of the mammary line. Accessory nipples may develop anywhere along the original mammary line but usually appear in the axillary region. There could be problems with the nipples, there could be inverted nipples, there could be supranumeral nipples, a condition in which the lactiferous ducts open up into the original epithelial pit that has failed to evert. This could be resulting in inverted nipples. or there could be multiple pit formation using the supernumerary nipples as well. By this time, we have come to this end of the section 5, and what have we covered in this is the sweat glands, their anatomy, and how they are formed from the epidermis. We have gone through the functions and what is vernaculosa and what is the most important function of vernaculosa. We have gone through the formation of nails and how the nail bed has actually resulted in the formation of a normal adult nail. We have gone through the mammary gland formation and how they're formed, what are how they're formed from the epidermis, and how the mesenchyme helps in formation of connective tissues of the breast as well. And we have partially covered the anomalies. There are so many others, but we have covered the major anomalies of the breast, that is the polythelia, gynecomastia, and inverted and supernumerary nipples. Thank you very much. Keep watching sqadia.com.